Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 5 of X-Force, written by Geoffrey Thorne, but before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So, with that said, this issue opens with the X-Force standing face-to-face with what appears to be an alternate universe version of the Avengers. As the two sides stood off, this version of Iron Man points out that our X-Force is causing his sensors to jump all over the map with some kind of energy flux. So with both sides unsure of the other, this universe's version of Storm orders her team to attack. And just like that, the battle was on. And on a side note, I like how their version of the Black Panther brings up how they never choose to talk instead of fighting, which is something that could solve 90% of hero confrontations before they even start. But anyway, right out of the gate, Storm took hold of Forge and flew him into a tree as Tank took a thunderous blow to the face from Thor. So, with chaos breaking loose, Sage just narrowly avoided a swipe from the Panther's claws as both Betsy and Rachel started to converse about the battle at hand. Now, at first, everything Betsy read was completely useless until she found something that could potentially shut down this battle. So, as Betsy prepared to do the deed, we hopped over to Forge battling it out with Storm. And during their interaction, Storm pointed out how her version of Forge got her pregnant and then ran away, which left her completely alone. Which was really bad news for our team leader, due to the fact that he would now have to face the wrath of the goddess of the elements. So as he ran and pleaded his case to deaf ears, he was left with no choice but to retaliate before it was too late. So in a stroke of genius, Forge took a hold of his weapon and opened fire on Storm and knocked her out of the sky. Now with Storm out of the battle, Forge debated what his next move should be, because by the looks of it, he was moments away from killing this Storm, and to make things more complicated, Nori walked up behind him and witnessed the whole thing. And actually went as far as to say, go on and do it, because she knew it was what he wanted to do, because from what she has seen, Nori knew that Forge would do anything to seal the fracture and solve a problem, even if it meant taking a life of a hero. So with his nature discovered, Forge went on to justify his actions by saying that they all are in a breach, so sometimes they have to make the hard choices. Now this was something Nori wanted nothing to do with, because she had enough of killing. So with these two mutants at a standoff, we then jump back over to the bigger overall battle, and during this battle, Rachel states that this version of the Avengers met her mother, and unlike the mainline universe, this universe of heroes seen it as a religious experience. So to play on that emotional response, Rachel took the form of the Phoenix and almost abruptly, everyone stopped in their tracks and dropped to their knees and instantly became submissive to Rachel's will. Now with this pause in the battle, the two teams were able to talk through the misunderstanding and stood on more agreeable grounds. And during their interaction, this version of the Avengers stated that days ago, all the skies turned red as the ley lines began to erupt and spew out unknown energies that destroyed cities, which ultimately killed thousands and caused their world to break. And only later did the Avengers learn that all this chaos was brought to them by the giant Golden Man, so like what all heroes would do, they tracked him down and found him near the latest energy disruption, and to their dismay, they witnessed the Golden Giant shattering their guardian, aka Man-Thing. Now with that explained, the Avengers point out that they thought the X-Force were the Golden Man's allies, so they were sorry for trying to kill them as a byproduct. Following that, before Forge could speak, the ground started to rumble as Man-Thing started to reform. Now with that said, Forge and Sage jumped into analyzing mode and started to diagnose everything going down. And after further investigation, Sage points out that based on existing data, the Guardian exists to protect the Nexus from threats, so with it starting to reform, that must mean the threat to the Nexus is nearby. And right when she said that, Nuclo emerged from the tree line, and just like before, the battle was on. So as the team started to rush in, something strange started to happen, for on the next page, we witnessed Forge displaying a power that we had never seen before. And as he floated, Forge stated that he knows what the fracture is, and then continued to say the fracture is the rifts, the portals that were opening all over the world. And the way that was happening was because Nuclo was linking the dimensional nexus points together, and to make things worse, if he completed at least 3 points, then all the portals would eventually stay open. Now this would lead the world to be flooded by the attacking monsters forever. Now with that out there, Sage added to Forge's information by saying, there is 66 known stable dimensional rift gates, worldwide. 47 mechanical, 13 mystical, 6 dead or defunct. Now out of the 2 Nuclo chose, only one had a guardian, which means logically he won't choose another that's defended. which means he is not going to choose the Baxter Building, not Castle Doom, not the Russian Gate, not the Chinese Whirlpool. So with all those locations off the table, Sage was able to narrow down her selection to 99% accuracy to where New Clo was going to appear next. And that was near to Loki's location, because he just opened a Nexus point in Quebec until the X-Men and Alpha Flight shut him down. So with that said, Sage continued to say, there were portals nearly everywhere by this point. Because all over the world, the monsters still continued to flood in and attack and kill everyone before them. It was so bad that even Cyclops' X-Men had to step in to help defend Alaska from the ongoing onslaught. Now the narrator then continued to say that it was sure some of the big brains investigated, but even they had no idea where or what to look for only the X-Force, due to Forge's technology, knew the truth of it due to his analog. So with that device in hand, of course, he came up with a plan to hopefully set things straight and stop New Clo. With all of that explained, the X-Force and the Avengers arrived on the scene, ready to do what needed to be done to stop the Golden Monster. So with that said, Forge stated, alright, New Clo is the anchor for all the portals, for he's vulnerable to high amounts of electricity. Now to pull this off, Forge wanted Nori, Iron Knight, Tempest, Sage, and himself to take point so they could hit him with overwhelming force before he could co-opt the third Nexus. While the rest of the team's sole job was to cut a pathway for them to get to New Clo. With the plan explained, the X-Force and Avengers started to cut through all the monsters before them. Then the narrator went on to say, in 1871, Prussian Field Marshal Helmuth von Moltke wrote about moments like this one. It stated, no operational plan extends with any certainty beyond the first encounter with the main enemy force. And then 200 years later, Iron Mike Tyson said it better, when he said, everybody has plans, until they get punched in the face. So with the pathway open, Forge and his squad made it all the way to New Clo himself as he raged out in the area that Sage predicted. And when they got there, New Clo had already opened the Nexus point, so with the worst case scenario made reality, the team still stood their ground and prepared for their next encounter. But see, not everyone was on the same page, because the Avengers members of the team jumped the gun and went straight into the battle without following the plan set before them, and as predicted, New Clo took them out with no problem. So with them eliminated, everyone stood in horror as Nori stepped up and stated that everything must fall down to her now. Now this was not the ideal situation, because according to Sage, Nori's body couldn't process that much energy because it was too much power. So in a desperate plea, Sage called for Forge to find another way, but instead of helping, Forge encouraged and injected Nori with an extreme amount of energy, to the point where she was consumed by electricity. So as Nori lit up, Sage continued to plead for Forge to stop and begged him to build a device or machine, but all Forge responded with was, he didn't have enough time or materials. Now with all that falling on deaf ears, Nori told Sage not to worry, for Forge was right, and she was okay with making the hard choice. And just like that, Nori let out all the pent-up energy directly at New Clo. And let's just say, Nori's power was so intense that it completely enveloped the Golden Giant and eradicated him from our plane of reality. So with New Clo gone, Nori's remains dropped to its knees as her body turned into nothing but charred remains. So with the deed done, the narrator went on to say, 1 picosecond after she died, Sage found herself thinking everything at once, started to think how Nori was dead. But at the cost of her life, the portals closed everywhere, and entropy must increase to maximum. Every invader, Avenger, and otherwise faded away, and transported back to their homes at the cost of turning Nori into ash. Following that interaction, Sage couldn't help but to ask Forge, did he know when he drafted her onto their team that she would end up this way? To which Forge replied by saying, his power doesn't work like that, and after he removed the gloves he made Nori, he then went on to say, she made the choice on her own. Now this wasn't good enough, because Sage cried out that she was just a child. But from Forge's perspective, Nori wasn't just a child, but instead a grown woman. So with tension growing, Sage cried out again and said that Forge can't tell her that he couldn't have built a machine that could have fixed this situation without the loss of a life. But all Forge replied with was, he did, he built the analog to stop Armageddons, for everything he builds does what he wants it to do. But see, that answer wasn't good enough for Sage, for she have had enough, and quit the team. So with the death of Nori, this issue of X-Force comes to an end. Now down in the comment section below let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.